Hello, this video is going to show you how to enter a CANS or ANZA into the DHS assessment tool. Once you're in the assessment tool and your client is in focus, you can enter a new CANS or ANZA by selecting CANS ANZA under the Assessment tab. This will open another screen that's split and looks like a grid. The top is the provider involvement list. To enter a new provider involvement, select New and enter your provider involvement start date, which is generally the date that you opened with the individual. You may be prompted to select your program office. Once you're finished, select Save, and you should see your provider name, your name as the assessor, and the start date in the provider involvement list. Now you're ready to enter a new assessment. If there are previous assessments listed in the assessment list, you will see them here. But if there isn't one, then you will be selecting New. If there are other assessments and they are less than a year old, the New button will say Update. If you select Update, the system will prompt you to copy the information from the previous assessment. We always advise that you do that so you can get information from the previous assessment. Since this one is brand new, we're going to select the New button. Once you select the New button, it's going to take you into the assessment, which is in the Synergy platform. The first thing that you will complete is the assessment pane. In the assessment pane, anything marked with a red asterisk is mandatory. The first thing we will enter is the assessment date, which is the date you had the conversation. The next thing you will enter is your assessment type. This automatically defaults based on the client's age, but if the client is 14 or older, you would have the ability to select ANZA or CANS. And finally, we'll select the individual's current living situation. We'll come back to the threshold once in another video. Once you're finished with this pane, you click Save and it should automatically collapse. If you need to open it back up, just use the arrows. The next pane is the respondent pane, or who you had the conversation with. The individual should automatically copy over, and they're listed as self as their relation. If you need to enter additional respondents, you can do so in two ways. If the potential respondents is clickable, you can click on that, and potential respondents will pull from other parts of KIDS. If you need to enter a new person, you select New, enter the mandatory information, which is relationship, first name, last name, and gender, and then you will select Save. You'll notice that information is saved correctly when you get a green banner at the top of the page. The next section or pane is the current situation pane. There is up to 3 mandatory questions in this pane. The first one, you will check the boxes that apply to the individual's current circumstance. If none of these apply, just check none of these apply. If the individual is 14 or older, you will check whether or not they're employed or not. And then the third question is primary language. The employed question is going to take you to either the employment domain or the unemployment domain. For primary language, it defaults to English, but there's a drop-down that includes many languages, including American Sign Language. You can also check if an interpreter or translator is needed, and then select Save. Once it's saved, you're ready to complete the domains within the assessment. We're going to start with strengths, resiliency, and wellness. The first thing that you should notice is that all of the items default to a rating of Explore. All of the rating descriptions are at the top of the page. There's also a save button at the top and the bottom. Remember, for strengths, anytime you indicate a 0 or a 1 for a centerpiece or a useful strength, you're required to write a description. And you can see that after the description, there's a red asterisk to remind you that that is mandatory. Once you're finished with that domain, you simply click Save. If you forget what the ratings mean, you can just hover over them. And you can see everything saved successfully. The next domain is the life functioning domain. Again, once this opens, you can see that everything defaults to Explore and has the Save button at the top and the bottom. For needs, remember that our 2s and 3s are our mandatory items that require a description. Also, if you choose a 1, there are many reasons to choose a 1, but one of those is if it's an item of disagreement. If it's an item of disagreement, you can simply check the box that says item of disagreement, and then we recommend that a description is entered in the description box, although this is optional. It's best to complete a description of all parties' opinions of the disagreement. Also, in the life functioning domain, there are extension modules. If you score one of these items, a 2 or a 3, then the extension module will appear directly below the item. There's also items throughout the assessment that have multi-selects, and physical medical is one. If you choose physical and medical as a 2 or a 3, the multi-select opens where you can choose the applicable medical conditions. And then you can enter your description. Once you're finished, again, you'll hit Save. Here's an example of where we forgot to enter some mandatory information. So you get a red banner. Scroll down and the item that we forgot to do something with is highlighted in red. Here we forgot to enter a description. Once we enter our description, we can then save and see if everything's saved correctly. And here we got the green banner. The next section is our trauma experiences domain. Remember, with the trauma experiences domain, the first section we have is a place for the trauma conversation. Here you can capture the conversation that you had with the individual, or maybe why the conversation didn't occur, because maybe the person wasn't ready to talk about trauma, or maybe the environment wasn't conducive to having that conversation. After that is entered, you have your list of trauma experiences that you can just check the boxes that apply. You also have the ability to check no trauma indicated if the conversation didn't happen, or other if there is something else that wasn't on the list. All of the other domains function the same way: youth or behavioral emotional needs, risk factors and behaviors, and caregiver strengths and needs. And then the next sections that we have are our extension modules. The first 3 expectant parent, foster kin, and employment are not clickable because they were not chosen during the current situation section. Because we answered the employment question as the person was not employed, the unemployment module is clickable. The employment and unemployment extension modules are a little bit different. There are some items that you can rate, but there are also some areas where there are some open text boxes for you to enter or type some information. And again, you have the save at the top and the bottom. The final domain is the My Life, My Story. Remember, with My Life, My Story, the My Life, My Story is the place where you can add additional information about the individual that you're working with or information that they would like to share. And then you have your assessor's observation, knowledge, and notes. And that's the place where you can enter information from your perspective as the assessor. And again, we'll click Save. And next, we're going to review how you would send for approval. Sending for approval, we're going to go back under the assessment pane, and under the threshold section, if you needed to send for your supervisor's approval, you would see a supervisor drop down here, and the button that says Save as Final would say Request Approval. This person is actually a supervisor, so they don't need to request approval. When they're finished with their assessment, they can simply choose Save as Final. Once you save as final, you're looking for the green banner to say that everything was saved successfully. If anything was missed, we'll get a red banner. And here we got a red banner because even though we didn't go into the behavioral and emotional needs domain or risk or caregiver, we still have to open up each of those domains and at least select save, even if we're leaving those ratings as explore. So now for that first domain, we got the green banner. Now for risk, we're going to do the same thing. Just go in and save. And then for caregiver strengths and needs, we're going to go in and save, but there's one additional piece that we have to enter because there is a strengths text box. So we do have to put something in that strengths conversation. And then we'll be able to save and then send for approval or save as final. So we'll go back to the place that we were gonna, anytime you click that, you will get a pop-out, are you sure? So now the assessment is saved as final. The last thing we want to take a look at is the reports. At the bottom of every page, you will see this reports box. Remember that the full report is the report that includes all of the items in the assessment. The summary report is going to pull out just the actionable strengths and needs. The SPANS report is just used in behavioral health, and the comparison report will allow you to compare any two assessments that have been completed. To select a report, you just simply select, and then you're going to hit print, although it's not going to automatically print. It's going to pull up as a PDF that you can then save, download and save, or print. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.